joining us now to discuss is Brett Quick. She's the head of government affairs at the Crypto Council for Innovation. Brett, great to have you on the show. So you were in the hearing room during the Senate's meeting today. What was the temperature check and what are some of the key takeaways?
Sure. Thanks, Christine, for having me. Happy to be with you today. The primary takeaway, I think, from the hearing today is that there's really tremendous interest in legislating around crypto and an acknowledgement that the status quo and the environment of regulation by enforcement, it isn't working for consumers or businesses, and it's often failing to protect investors. So we heard from both sides, the need to establish regulatory guardrails, the need for financial literacy, for increased disclosure. So that was really a common refrain. I will say the hearing was not particularly contentious. We didn't see a lot of partisan fireworks. So I think there's a lot of reasons to be encouraged that this committee can work on legislation and move toward establishing, the very badly needed federal regulatory framework that the industry has been asking for.
It's interesting you say that because Senator Sherrod Brown is known to be a vehement critic of cryptocurrencies. He said he'd want to ban cryptocurrencies in the past. Did this hearing have a flavor of a crackdown? I noticed on the witness list, it was mainly academics versus very few, if none, industry folks.
Yeah, I think that was by design. They wanted it to be an academic hearing. They wanted it to be relatively bipartisan, really more of a fact-finding mission than an opportunity to sort of throw, political jabs at one side or the other, because I think there is recognition that the technology is here to stay, that a ban is not a viable option to pursue. I think that Chairman Brown himself gets that at this point, that there's going to need to be legislation, there's going to need to be regulation around the crypto industry. And as we've said for a long time at the Crypto Council and the industry more broadly, crypto is for everyone, and the need to regulate crypto sort of has something for everyone on sort of all points of the political spectrum, whether you're particularly concerned about investor and consumer protection after some of the collapses and losses that we've seen, or your particular concern is that you want to promote American innovation. I think it was Ranking Member Scott today that said the sun never sets on American innovation. So for the Crypto Council, we care tremendously about both of those things, about protecting consumers, establishing consumer confidence so that the technology can be more widely adopted, and also providing the clarity and certainty that the industry needs to really grow and thrive here in the United States. So whatever angle you sort of approach the need for regulation from, there is sort of that common ground that something needs to happen. And what we've done to this point, again, with sort of regulation by enforcement, it's not getting the job done.
So in terms of something needs to happen, do you have a sense of what will happen in next steps?
Sure. There continue to be some really positive bipartisan conversations, I think, in both chambers of Congress to work to come to an agreement on what a piece of legislation would look like to set forth, the regulation that we've discussed. There's the sort of financial services banking piece that has jurisdiction over the SEC and sort of whatever digital assets are determined to be securities. And then, of course, as we know, there's the piece that lies with the House and Senate Agriculture Committees and giving the CFTC jurisdiction over crypto spot markets. So all of those conversations are ongoing. There was a lot of momentum last year, and that's sort of continued. We're going to see a lot of debate about particular details, but I think there are a lot of positive signs that folks are going to come together to try to advance something. And it's hard to legislate, it's a process, and we're going through that now and trying to be a resource with policymakers that are really interested in learning more and being active in the space.
Well, last year there were a couple of pieces of legislation just under discussion: the Lummis-Gillibrand bill, the DCCPA, the Digital Commodity Exchange Act as well. Are any of those going to be taken up this year, or will they start from scratch?
The DCEA in particular has been around for many years. The DCCPA is sort of a different approach at getting at some of the core components of the DCEA, to really give the CFTC more authority. Right now they have fraud and manipulation authority, but they don't have the authority to sort of preemptively have oversight and a lens into the markets and into the firms which are operating in them. So, those concepts will continue to be discussed, and how they'll be advanced, I think, may be modified to some degree based on different members that want to be at the table this Congress. But I think we'll see, similar versions of those types of pieces of legislation, as well as some other approaches. There's an effort right now at House Financial Services to really think thoughtfully about what they're calling sort of market structure legislation will look like, and what that means for the SEC's role and jurisdiction, and really sort of encouraging the SEC to sort of set forth these rules that the industry so badly needs. That to this point they haven't done. They haven't done any sort of formal rulemakings in the space, despite the fact that Chairman Gensler says that he has the authority. So I think we'll see lots of these concepts continue to get a lot of attention. And again, all the details will sort of be worked out over the coming months and years in this Congress.
Was there any conversation about the news of the day in terms of Paxos, BUSD stablecoins, or Kraken and proof of staking?
I don't recall those specific cases coming up in an exchange this morning in the hearing. There was a lot of discussion about regulation by enforcement, and I think that Paxos and Kraken sort of fall into that. And again, the recognition that's not working, sort of after the fact, holding firms accountable for things that they didn't have the rules of the road to begin with. They can't drive the speed limit if they don't know what it is. That's not protecting investors to the extent that something is happening that shouldn't be, and it's not giving companies the clarity that they need to be able to innovate and grow, and knowing sort of in what parameters they're able to do that.
All right. Well, Brett, thank you for joining us. That was Crypto Council for Innovation Head of Government Affairs, Brett Quick.